Miracles happen. That's the testimony, because our friends, the Fitzpatricks, have made it here on their journey. And I'll bring you into the conversation that we had over the last hour and a half or so, because it demonstrates and really serves as the definition of what friendship looks like. We all started thinking, I don't know if you guys were thinking this, but we were thinking, like, we looked at the weather, looked at the forecast, started thinking, man, this is going to be dicey. It's going to be a rough drive. And the Fitzpatricks are coming from Lawndale, so it's not right next door. So, for those of you who are coming maybe from Glencoe or Highland Park, someone told me it took them an hour to get here from Buffalo Grove. So they're coming from Lawndale, and so all in, it was 2.5 hours, 3-hour journey here this evening, right? So about an hour before services started, the Fitzpatricks called me and said, we're on our way. We've been in the car, but the GPS says we're still about an hour out. And then I said, and Rabbi Daniels and Todd, we were all kind of standing together, and we said, maybe you should just go back home. We don't know if it's worth it for you to sit in the car for another hour just to maybe get here. And immediately they said, oh no, we're coming. We're not turning back now. We might not get to speak, but we'll get to eat together. Exactly. And it strikes me that in that is, what it means to choose to be a partner, to be a friend, or not. Do we choose to show up for one another even when it's not convenient for us? That's what determines whether you have a friend or not. And so I am deeply touched and honored that the Fitzpatricks are here with us again this Shabbat. We love having them here, but in particular this Shabbat, do I feel the warmth and love of friendship, and just deeply honored on behalf of all of us for you, for your offerings, for your teachings, but really for your demonstrating what it means to show up and to show up for each other when, man, was this not at all convenient or pleasant for you to even get here. We hope we will make it pleasant for you now. So with no further ado, will you please welcome my friends, our friends, Bishop and Pastor Fitzpatrick to our bema. Give them a warm round of applause.
Well, good evening. So we're super excited to be here. It's not often that I get a chance to spend 2.5 hours in the car with my husband. So it was really good. We had a really good conversation. And I was thinking, what it must have been like trying to Exodus, Egypt, with all the people and all the crowds, because there were lots of people out on the expressway as we were getting here, and we were seriously determined to be here because we wanted our freedom. We wanted to be free from thinking about not coming when we gave our word. I remember maybe several years ago, I had given my word that I would go and minister at someone's church, and I was extremely tired. It was one of those days when that's when I did have a professional job. I retired, so I don't have to go there anymore. Anyway, I was thinking, I'm really tired today. And then I said, but I gave my word. And I felt like that this evening. We gave our word, and your word should be your bond. And a little snow shouldn't stop you from being committed to what you say you are committed to. And because we love Rabbi Wendy and we love you all, we are here tonight to talk a little bit about freedom and fellowship and about justice. We know what it feels like to be in bondage, don't we? We also know what it feels like to be free. We know what it feels like to have people that you can really fellowship with, to be on one accord with, to share your innermost feelings and to share your God and your worship. And speaking of worship, sometimes we just want to get out and worship. Nothing else on our mind other than just worshiping our God together in the spirit of unity. We know what it feels like to stand up for justice, to be in a place where things are not right, and to be the only voice sometimes that will stand up and say, this is not justice. So we're here to celebrate with you all tonight, to share some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom in this time when we look at the political arena today. It's kind of scary, but with God on our side, things will work out in our favor. And so I say this, can I get 3 people just to say amen?
Good evening. Again, we love you guys so much, and we appreciate you being patient with us coming out here. We wouldn't miss it for the world. My wife just talked about the political arena, talked about some things that are going on that may cause us to be distressed, disturbed, perplexed, confused. And as we talk about friendship, as Rabbi Wendy just talked about, friendship, really deep friendship is a love that you have for one another, a respect that you have for one another. On the writings of Solomon, he says that a friend loves at all times, and that a brother is born for adversity. And as my wife kind of alluded to, we are in a season where there's a lot of adversity that goes on. We've got adversity in the White House. We've got adversity in the synagogue. We've got adversity at the church. We've got adversity in our house. We've got adversity on our job. And adversity has an assignment. Adversity is to try to do, I said 3 things. Number 1, adversity is to try to pull us away from the love of God. Adversity is there to try to separate us from the friendships that we have with one another. And adversity is there to make our picture of what's real appear false. Adversity is there to make us think that the victories that we are winning are really losses. And so we come today, we had adversity coming down the highway, but realizing that the assignment was greater than the adversity. Why? Because a friend loves at all times. And so because we call you friend, we want to make sure that we could get here, if nothing else, just to be in your presence. And so we talked about the Exodus and about leaving. So we joking outside, we said that we got here because the Exodus from the city, where we left our wandering to get to a place of promise, because we knew if we could get to the promised land, everything would be all right. And so the journey, the Exodus journey, is worth it. Why? Because you know that you're going to a place that you're going to find some friends. You're going to go to a place where there's going to be strong relationships that have been built. You're going to go to a place where, in fact, when you go through adversity and you feel this tugging in your life pulling you away from God, you need to get around somebody who's going to tell you, guess what? As your friend, I'm going to be there with you, and it's going to be all right. Well, my wife didn't tell you, and I know she was thinking about it. During the holiday season, we found out that we had some really things in common, because we binge watched 40 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. We binge watched 40 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. Not only did we binge watch 40 episodes, now think about 40 is coming out of the wilderness, 40. We binge watched 40 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. And what we found out that wasn't enough. Because after we saw all 40 episodes and we had left and had an exodus from the beginning to the new play, we had to go back and look at some of the things to get a better understanding of what we had just saw. And I found out that we found out that, you know how much that adversity is so much today, that the Man in the High Castle talked about the trichotomy of the problems that we face today, that why we need each other as friends. Why the Jewish community and the African American community need to make sure that we bind ourselves back together and we allow God to connect us. Because in the man in the high castle, they tried to make us think that our victories were losses, and they tried to make us believe that it was an alternative world to what really should be. They tried to make us believe that even though you can have somebody who will tell you something in your faith that you know is not true, you got to believe by your friends and by overcoming adversity that what you're about to go to is better than where you come out of. And so we watched 40 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. And what I found amazing, and you all know what happened in the Man in the High Castle, what I found amazing is that we find ourselves in a time of adversity where if we are not careful, if we as friends don't join together, we will find ourselves right there in the same scenario as the man in the high castle, because I found that here we are in 2020, and we still have a fight with racism and a fight with anti-Semitism, and we still are fighting for folks who will try to tell you we don't believe that the Holocaust happened, and we don't believe that slavery happened. And sometimes when you run into those folks, you find out that the people that you thought were your friends have changed their address. They've moved down the street, and they moved to the corner of confusion and bewilderment, because they don't want to believe that what you are saying is something that they need to be cognizant of, because friends ought to be able to disagree but not be disagreeable. And so sometimes we may be on one side or the other side, but at the end of the day, we need to all be on the same side that God wants to pull us together on, because as a friend, we've got to love in spite of, and we've got to make sure that the atrocities of the past don't become the atrocities of the present, and that we can make sure that our future is going to be better than our past. So we watched 40 episodes. 40 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. And one thing I found out that was really good, that he said to Juliana Crane, he said to her that what I found in you is a friend. Now, he didn't use these words, this is my paraphrase, but I found that you're a friend who's willing to go to bat for even her enemy, because we must understand that we've got to understand and respect our enemies, but not let our enemies change our relationship with the people that love us. Look at somebody and say, I love you. And so then I said, well, let me understand that we're trying to build this relationship, this fellowship with the Jewish community and African American community. And I remember that God's in Exodus, in the 33rd chapter of Exodus, God set down our hero Moses and set him down through a time when the people were moving away from God. They had moved so far away from God that they were afraid to go back to God, because they were given the viewpoint from their friends, or they used to be friends, that their victories were not now lost. Understand that when they came in the Exodus, when they came out of Exodus, they should have all been excited. They should have all been happy. They should have been able to come out on a Friday night in spite of whether it's snowing and say the fellowship of our friends is worth more than staying at home being comfortable. Because understand this, you might be comfortable at home, but if your brother's in trouble, so are we. If we may be comfortable where we are, we may be comfortable in North Lawndale, we may be comfortable in Glencoe, but understand that there's somebody around us that may not be as comfortable as us, and we must understand that even though we're comfortable, if our friend is in trouble, we've got to call on God to say, let's all help one another. We've got to reach out to the folk that don't have what we have, can't do what we do, and understand that, he said in The Man in the High Castle, he said that Juliana Crane, what I found in you, the reason that the assignment came to you is because you are the person who has a heart that is big enough to look beyond even the hatred, even the anti-Semitism, even the racism of what people do, and find the best in them. We came out here tonight because, you know what? We come out here not because we want to find out what was wrong or what was good, but we come out here tonight because we understand that tonight, we all are looking for the best in each other, and we're coming together. So God said this to Moses when the people had moved away. He said, my servant Moses, I talked to face. God had a relationship with Moses, and in 33:11, it said, and he called him friend. My God, Can you look at somebody and say, can I call you my friend? And understand this, I had this discussion at work. A friend, even if it's your wife, your wife ought to be your friend, or your husband ought to be your friend. So when I say God called Moses his friend, it was an example that God said, I'm going to make sure that my friend is able to leave, to have an exit and get out of slavery and move into freedom, because God, the Bible, the book says, God called Moses his friend. And then what happened was in the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night, what happened was that God then said that the people saw that God and Moses were friends. And the people said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to follow Moses as he follows God. And as long as we know that we've got one somebody who is connected to God, that one somebody can connect the rest of us together in the man in the high castle. Juliana Crane just believed that I have an assignment to make sure I pull reality back into place, that the victories that we won I no longer look at like losses. 2020 is going to be a fantastic year. And it may look like we're losing. But let me tell you the secret. At the end, we're already going to win. And as long as we know we're going to win in the end, then every time I'm hanging out with my friend, when I'm down, my friend reminds me, we're going to win. When I got tears in my eyes, my friend reminds me, we're going to win. And when my friend is hurting, I remind my friends, we're going to win. When it's snowing outside and it's going to take 2.5 hours to get to Glencoe, we remind ourselves talking, we're going to win. When Rabbi Wendy gets up and gives us an introduction and says it's a miracle, we believe in miracles, because what we understand that at the end of the day, because we believe God and we believe in miracles, we are going to win. Here's the final point. The book says in 33, it says that after God called Moses his friend, they were in the tabernacle. And while they were in the tabernacle, Joshua, Moses' friend and Moses' assistant, the glory of God was so much around the tabernacle that Moses had been around when God had called him a friend. The glory was so much that Joshua said, I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to hang on in here till I get to where I'm trying to go. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to trust God. I'm not going to worry about adversity. I'm going to trust God. Solomon said, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. So once Joshua saw that Moses and God were connected, and he saw the Spirit of God, he said, whatever issues I might have had with each other, my love as a friend is so much greater than that I'm just going to stay here and bask in the glory of God, because every now and then you need somebody to point you back to God. And once you get back there, you can say, Shabbat Shalom.